Alright, so this is going to be an example of a lower level class of CP Math 2 dealing with triangle similarity. That would be, you know, angle, angle, side, 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 or side, angle, side. So they would come in on day 2, and this would be an example of how we could use some of the different blooms. So we could say, you know, remember we could give them 2 triangles, and it could have some little marks, something like this, and we could just ask them, what type of similarity, or how could we prove that these 2 are similar? So they would have to remember that we dealt with these 3, and then the angle, angle would apply. The understand aspect, if we are looking at this, we could ask them to take this further and say, why are these the angle, angle? And they would have to explain that the little tick marks mean that the angles are congruent. And if 2 of the 3 angles of a triangle are congruent, that means the third are also congruent, therefore we can apply the angle, angle. We could then move, you know, and I just said apply, so that kind of carries into it, but to use it in a new situation. So maybe I would present to them, let's see if I can draw this, a triangle within a triangle, and say, you know, if these are parallel, how can we also use the angle, angle theorem or postulate to prove that these 2 triangles are similar? And they would have to know the definition of parallel, of a transversal, alternate interior angles, corresponding angles, and then apply that to show that these 2 are congruent, which means process of elimination. Those are also, so we could apply the angle, angle there. If we want to look at the analyze, draw connections, very, very similar. I could give them 2 triangles that weren't parallel. So we could draw something like, let's draw something like this, and say, how do we know that this cannot use the same process? So they would have to analyze how it looks very similar, but because they're not parallel, we cannot assume anything. You know, and they would also, I think, carry into the evaluation. A lot of these you can see kind of are intertwined. They would then have to justify, why are these not the same? And then the last thing was, maybe I would have them create 2 triangles that are similar by these side angle sides. So not only would they have to know that this means that we have 2 angles congruent and 2 pair of sides that are proportional, they would then have to create triangles that have proportional sides, and that can be challenging for some of these lower level students. So that would be one way where we could apply blooms in that Math 2 versus the honors classroom.